Discomfort rarely shows up gently. It doesn't arrive as a clear message or a rational explanation. It arrives as a quiet tension you can't seem to resolve, a persistent sense that something no longer fits the way it used to. At first, you try to normalize it. You tell yourself you're tired, distracted, ungrateful, or simply overthinking. But the feeling doesn't fade. It intensifies. That's because discomfort is not a mood here. It's a signal. It appears when the system you've been living inside of can no longer support who you're becoming. Comfort disappears not because you fail to maintain it, but because growth has reached the limits of the old structure. The psyche detects stagnation long before the mind is willing to admit it. You may still be functioning, still meeting expectations, still playing the role you've learned to play. From the outside, nothing looks broken, but internally, a quiet pressure begins to build. Staying starts to feel like self-betrayal. You notice the gap between who you are internally and what your life requires you to express. That gap creates friction, and the longer you ignore it, the louder the discomfort becomes. It doesn't soften with time because it isn't asking for patience, it's asking for movement. You are uncomfortable because the old structure can no longer hold who you're becoming. What often confuses people is that this discomfort doesn't feel like progress. It feels like disruption. Familiar stability begins to weaken all at once. Routines that once grounded you lose their effectiveness. Identities that once gave you clarity start to feel restrictive. Beliefs that once organized your decisions no longer explain your experience. This simultaneous weakening can feel like everything is going wrong at the same time. But upgrades don't begin with ease. They begin with instability. Every meaningful upgrade requires the old system to loosen its grip. Predictability collapses because predictability would keep you anchored to a version of life that has already reached its ceiling. The mind interprets this as danger. It labels the process as loss, chaos, or failure. But what feels like disruption is actually preparation. During this phase, your nervous system plays a central role. Long before your thoughts change, your body begins to react. Anxiety appears without a clear reason. Restlessness hums beneath otherwise ordinary days. Fatigue sets in that rest doesn't resolve. These sensations are often misunderstood as something going wrong, but they are signs of recalibration. Your body is exiting survival patterns it relied on for years. Patterns that once kept you safe, functional, and accepted. As those patterns dissolve, the nervous system has to learn a new baseline. Calm doesn't arrive immediately. In fact, calm can feel unsafe at first. When a system is used to constant vigilance, peace feels unfamiliar. This is the somatic side of psychological and spiritual growth. The discomfort isn't just mental. It's your body learning how to exist without the old threat responses. At the same time, identity resistance begins to surface. The old version of you does not step aside quietly. The ego resists right before expansion because expansion threatens relevance, control, and explanation. Identity clings to outdated roles because those roles once made sense of the world. They told you who you were and how to survive. Letting them go feels like erasure. You may notice an increase in overthinking, nostalgia, or a sudden desire to prove that the old way still works. Resistance peaks at the edge of change because the old identity senses it cannot come with you. The struggle you feel isn't with life or the universe. It's with letting go of who you were when that version no longer fits. As the resistance softens, a removal phase often begins. Things start to fall away. Relationships shift, habits lose their pull. Goals that once motivated you feel strangely irrelevant. This can feel like something is being taken from you, like loss without explanation. But nothing is being removed to punish you. Space has to exist before an upgrade can land. Alignment requires room. Loss often precedes clarity because clarity cannot emerge in a crowded system. When everything is full of the old, there is no capacity for the new. What feels like subtraction is actually clearing. It is the necessary quieting that allows a different life to form without competing with the past. This is usually the moment when the temptation to go back becomes strongest. The mind panics when certainty disappears. It compares familiar pain with unfamiliar freedom and decides the familiar is safer. Nostalgia intensifies. You remember the good parts more vividly than the reasons you grew. The urge to return is not a sign that you were wrong to move forward. It's a sign that the upgrade is close. Many people reverse growth at this exact stage, not because they failed, but because they underestimated how uncomfortable the final stretch would feel. Wanting to go back is proof that the old system is no longer fully operational, but the new one hasn't fully taken over yet. This is where the deeper recognition begins to form. Discomfort is not the enemy, it is the doorway. Upgrades do not arrive gently, because gentleness would allow you to stay exactly where you are. Pressure forces movement when comfort fails. This experience is not here to warn you or diagnose you. It's here to confirm something you already sense. The old system has done its job. Trust does not come from demanding clarity or guarantees. It comes from recognizing the intelligence of the process unfolding inside you. If everything feels uncomfortable right now, it's not because you're broken or being tested. It's because comfort would keep you in a life that can no longer grow with you. The discomfort is precise. It has direction. And it exists because the next version of your life requires you to loosen your grip on the old one. As this doorway stays open, another layer of the experience becomes visible. One that often goes unnoticed because it doesn't feel dramatic enough to name. You may realize that the discomfort isn't only about what is ending, but about the fact that you can no longer lie to yourself in small, convenient ways. The inner negotiations stop working. You can't convince yourself that things are good enough. You can't postpone the truth with distraction or optimism. This is not because you've become negative. It's because your tolerance for self-deception has dropped. Growth removes the ability to comfortably pretend. And when pretending is no longer available, discomfort becomes unavoidable, but also clarifying. At this stage, many people notice that their emotional reactions change shape. Instead of sharp spikes of anxiety or frustration, there is a steady pressure, almost neutral in tone. It doesn't scream, it waits. This is important. When discomfort becomes steady rather than reactive, it means the system is no longer in panic. It's in insistence. Something in you is calmly refusing to continue as before. You may still feel fear, but it is no longer chaotic. It is focused, directed. It points toward what can no longer be sustained. And that kind of fear is not meant to stop you. It is meant to orient you. You might also notice that your relationship with effort changes. Pushing harder does not restore comfort. Over-explaining yourself doesn't relieve the tension. Trying to be grateful doesn't soften the signal. This can feel confusing if effort once solved most problems in your life. But upgrades don't respond to effort. They respond to alignment. The system is not asking you to do more. It is asking you to stop doing what no longer fits. The discomfort intensifies because the old strategies are no longer effective, and that failure is intentional. It prevents you from maintaining a life that has already expired internally. This is where the sense of being in between becomes unavoidable. You are no longer fully identified with the old system, but you are not yet living from the new one. That gap feels exposed, vulnerable, undefined. The mind wants to close it quickly, to label it, to escape it. But this in-between space is where the upgrade integrates. It is where the nervous system recalibrates, where identity loosens, where values quietly reorganize. Rushing out of this space often means recreating the same structure with different details. Staying present within it allows something genuinely new to form. As you remain here, a quiet strength begins to develop. Not confidence in outcomes, but confidence in perception. You trust your signals more. You recognize misalignment faster. You no longer need extreme suffering to justify change. Subtle discomfort is enough. This is a sign of maturity, not fragility. Your system has become sensitive because it is refined, not because it is weak. You are no longer built to endure what you have already outgrown. There is also a moment, often subtle, when you realize that the discomfort has already changed you. Even if nothing external has shifted yet, you are no longer the same person who entered this phase. You think differently. You listen differently. You notice when something costs you more than it gives. And once that awareness exists, it cannot be undone. This is why upgrades feel irreversible. Not because life forces you forward, but because you cannot unknow what your body and psyche have already learned. Eventually, the pressure begins to soften. Not all at once, and not dramatically. It softens because resistance decreases. You stop arguing with the signal. You stop asking it to justify itself. You accept that the discomfort has a purpose, even if the destination is not yet clear. This acceptance doesn't solve everything, but it stabilizes you enough to move honestly when the time comes. And when movement happens, it will not feel like escape. It will feel like congruence. This is the quiet truth behind discomfort at this level. It is not here to break you, rush you, or scare you into action. It is here to ensure that the next version of your life is not built on denial. It clears, loosens, destabilizes, not out of cruelty, but out of precision. The universe does not make you uncomfortable to punish you. It does so when comfort would keep you in a life that no longer fits the shape of who you are becoming. You are not behind. You are not missing something. You are not failing to understand the lesson. You are in the upgrade itself. And upgrades never feel comfortable until they are complete. There is a point in this process where you stop expecting the discomfort to teach you something new. Instead, you begin to see that it is repeating itself on purpose, not because you missed the message, but because repetition is how the psyche makes something irreversible. Each time the discomfort returns, it strips away another layer of doubt, another excuse, another way you used to minimize what you feel. Eventually, there is nothing left to negotiate with. The signal remains the same because the truth remains the same. And that truth no longer needs to be dramatic to be undeniable. At this stage, you may notice that your attention starts to turn inward in a different way. Not obsessively, not anxiously, but steadily. You become more aware of the internal cost of things you once tolerated without question. The cost of certain conversations, the cost of certain obligations, the cost of certain versions of yourself. This awareness isn't loud, but it's precise. It doesn't accuse, it simply registers. And once that registration happens, your system quietly refuses to go back to numbness. You cannot unknow what drains you now. You cannot unfeel what constricts you. Sensitivity increases because consciousness has sharpened. This is also where time begins to feel strange. The past feels further away, even if nothing has changed externally. The future feels closer, even though you can't define it yet. You may feel suspended between what was and what will be, living in a stretched present that doesn't offer resolution. This can feel uncomfortable for a mind that wants linear progress. But psychologically, this suspended state is where reorganization happens. Meaning is dissolving and reforming simultaneously. Identity is loosening its grip, while something deeper begins to orient you from underneath thought. This is why rushing clarity here backfires. Clarity belongs to structure. You are between structures. You might also begin to recognize how much of your previous stability depended on external validation, on being seen a certain way, on being needed, on being consistent. When those mirrors stop reflecting you accurately, the old identity loses coherence. And that loss can feel frightening, but it also brings relief. You no longer have to perform alignment. You no longer have to convince yourself that what drains you is worth it. The system stops rewarding self-sacrifice that leads nowhere. What once felt like strength now feels like avoidance, and that recognition cannot be undone. As this continues, the discomfort changes again. It becomes less emotional and more existential, less about how you feel day to day and more about how you are positioned in your own life. You may feel a quiet urgency to live more honestly, even if you don't yet know what that honesty looks like in action. This urgency is not impatience. It's integrity awakening. It's the part of you that no longer wants to postpone alignment for the sake of explanation, timing, or permission. It doesn't demand immediate change. It demands truth. There is often a moment here where you realize that the discomfort has already protected you from something. It has prevented you from doubling down on a life that would have slowly erased you. It has interrupted momentum that was no longer conscious. It has made staying uncomfortable enough that leaving, when the time comes, will not feel like betrayal, but like relief. In that sense, discomfort is not the obstacle. It is the safeguard. It ensures that you do not build the future on top of something that was already collapsing internally. Eventually, something subtle but decisive happens. The question shifts again. You stop asking, "When will this end?" and begin asking, "What is this making impossible for me now?" And the answers come quietly. You realize you can no longer pretend interest. You can no longer shrink your perception. You can no longer accept explanations that once satisfied you. Certain doors close internally, long before they close externally. And once they do, the pressure no longer needs to increase. It has done its job. This is when the upgrade becomes less about discomfort and more about coherence. You feel moments, brief but real, where your inner and outer worlds line up, even if only partially. In those moments, the noise drops, the nervous system settles. You feel grounded without knowing why. Those moments are previews, not promises, but confirmations. They show you that alignment is possible, and that the discomfort you endured was not random suffering, but intelligent preparation. You are not meant to stay in this phase forever, but you are meant to pass through it fully. Skipping it, numbing it, or rushing it only prolongs the process. Letting it work on you, without turning it into a problem to solve, allows it to complete itself. And when it does, the movement forward will feel strangely simple. Not easy, but clean. Not dramatic, but true. For now, the task remains the same. Stay present. Stay honest. Stay unwilling to betray what you now know. The discomfort will not escalate forever. It only escalates until you stop resisting the fact that you are changing. Once that resistance drops, the system reorganizes. The pressure redistributes. And what once felt like being pushed begins to feel like being carried. This is not the end of the upgrade, but it is the point where it stops fighting you. And that is when real change finally becomes possible.